Welcome to Waiting on the Trade, a monthly comics book club for people who can't keep up with monthly comics. I'm Matt Ledger.
I'm Patrick Fitzgerald Fleck.
And I'm Kathryn Prince.
This month we're talking about Bryan Lee O'Malley's Seconds, a graphic novel from Ballantine Books. Now, in case y'all need a refresher, Seconds is a story in which our lead character, Katie, stresses about having made a series of quote-unquote bad life choices, including pouring a bunch of time and money into a restaurant that has yet to open. Katie then gains the power to undo some of her bad choices, and of course ends up making things much worse as a result. And also, we once again learn that bread makes you fat.
Yeah, Bryan does not like bread. Or maybe he likes it too much.
I pointed out to
Everybody likes
Kat
bread.
at the bottom of that page, I hadn't noticed it before, like underneath the bread makes you fat joke again, he's just got a little footnote that's like, sorry.
Wait, was that a recurring joke?
Yeah, it's from Scott Pilgrim. Anyways, there's a little footnote that says sorry, and I'm not sure whether it's like sorry that bread makes you fat or sorry for reusing this joke.
I never noticed that footnote before. It's pretty amazing.
Before we get too deep into this, Kat, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Kat, and together with Matt and Pat, we are the Triad. And we've known each other since college, which at this point has been a while. And yeah, I kind of got into comics. Well, if you count like newspaper sorts of comics, I was a very avid reader of Calvin and Hobbes, and some The Far Side as a kid.
Heck
I think
yeah.
I've read just about every Calvin and Hobbes comic that's ever come out. Yeah, and now I read it when I don't feel like reading a full novel, and it's a nice way to appreciate art.
I like that you've deftly dodged the fact that we're married to each other.
And we're married to each
I feel
other.
very good about it overall.
Oh dear. I thought you had already mentioned that. I'm sorry. Yes,
I mean,
and
it kinda
Matt and I
has,
are
but, like,
married. So.
Every episode's someone's first episode, Kat.
So, other than Calvin and Hobbes, what would you say is your first, serious, quote unquote, serious?
Wow.
Oh,
Judgment
so you're
of
saying
what's a
Calvin and
serious
Hobbes is
comic.
not serious?
I said other than, so I included Calvin and Hobbes.
I kind of have a kind of an off-kilter taste in comics, I suppose. I don't tend to like the ones that are about superheroes that Marvel and DC puts out.
Sure.
So I like things that are just kind of like off the beaten track, I suppose. Yeah, I mean Scott Pilgrim was probably one of the earlier comic series that I got into, which is what Bryan Lee O'Malley was putting together back when I was in college, my early 20s, and that was fun to wait for them to come out. I think I got into it when he was what there 7 of them, and I think 4 of them had been
I
published.
think
So
there were 6 and it was 3. I'm trying to remember
uh,
because like the last 2 I think came out while we were in
but there
Australia,
are 7
or
Evil
number 5
X's. Oh,
came
but
out.
2 of them are twins.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah, so there were 6. Yeah, anyway, it was about halfway through, so it was a nice way to just, read some of them all together and then get to wait for the rest.
get to.
Yeah, waiting can be fun.
Well, cool.
So, what made you want to read Seconds for your episode?
Well, so Seconds is, I mean, you described what it's about, but also it's about someone who's reaching the end of their 20s and is kind of sort of freaking out about not having their life together, which I can certainly relate to, having done that recently.
Yeah, let's raise our hands actually if we are doing that currently. If you can't see me on the podcast recording, my hand's raised.
Yeah, see, I remember when I was in my late 20s, I had that. Don't worry, you'll get through it.
Yeah, Pat, she's been this condescending about like having turned 30 since she turned 30 last
Well,
year.
yeah, I mean, once you round that corner, it's fine.
Just keep hanging out with 20-somethings. Anyway, but this one seemed like a very kind of an appropriate book to kind of dive into more for a closer look, just because I feel like we sort of grew up at the same time as maybe Bryan Lee O'Malley, but certainly his characters, because we were in our early 20s when Scott Pilgrim and gang were also in their early 20s, and now it kind of feels like he came back and is examining characters from, once again, a more relatable standpoint.
I feel like he's been slightly ahead of us by like
He has been
3
slightly
to
ahead
4
of us.
years,
But it
basically,
depends.
our
Like
entire lives.
every time you reread it, it's different. So like the first time I read Scott Pilgrim, I was like, oh yeah, they're like me. And then the last time I reread it, which was back when I was 29, I was like, oh my God, they're so young.
Let the
Who
record
are these
reflect that
people?
That was 3 months ago.
I know.
Time flies.
So yeah, I'm sure if anybody is listening to this and is like in their 30s or 40s or 50s, they'll find this quite tedious. But that was just something I was thinking about that made me choose this particular comic.
Yeah, I was trying to like decide whether I got more out of it the first time I read it, which was probably like right when it came out in 2014 because again, Scott Pilgrim was so formative for us that I think like we were pretty pumped about seconds, or if I
Are you
got more out
using
of it on
we in
this
the
read.
in the royal term, or are you
I'm
including
saying
me
we
in
in the
your?
you and me sense. You can feel free to disagree though.
Hmm. Yeah, maybe.
I would say it was formative. Like it's a pretty big part of a pretty big part of my life, and that like the 6 months or whatever where we studying in Australia, I would say is like a formative experience, and that's a comic that I read during that time, and it was pretty impactful to me.
Okay.
Cool.
Thanks, guys. Good discussion. Because Pat, when did you first read Scott Pilgrim, and then this is your first time reading this, right?
Yes, I'm
It
pretty
is weird
sure.
that the books are just like linked to me, like they just are for some reason.
I mean, part of that is the secret cameos that the Scott Pilgrim characters have in the book.
I did
Otherwise, you
not
could
catch
maybe
that.
pretend they weren't. Oh, really? Have you read
No,
Scott Pilgrim, Pat?
I. Yes, I've read. I don't know if I read the whole thing. I think I have.
I think you did.
Probably enough for the characters to be recognizable. It's something fun to look through. It's kind of like comics meets Where's Waldo.
Well, yeah, I thought some of like the wide shots at the restaurant. I recognized some of the characters in there,
Yeah,
but
they were
like,
in a couple of those, and then there's like one overhead shot where Scott and Ramona are like on a date or something.
oh really?
Basically,
That
yeah,
blue hair, oh yes, with the
I
star
missed
yeah.
that.
pin.
But yeah, I know Scott Pilgrim probably more from the movie Sacrilege. I know, but that's probably where I know most of it from. But yeah, what I do remember of the comic book is pretty awesome too. So, but yeah, I definitely didn't have as strong of a connection as you seem to have had, Matthew.
I mean, I don't think I had as strong of a connection with it
Well, the
the
story
first time I read
changes.
it. No, I'm just saying like I think I did have a stronger connection with. Oh, I'm talking about Seconds, not Scott Pilgrim. I see where the
Oh,
confusion
okay.
is.
Yeah.
So the first time I read Seconds, I really liked it, but I don't think I had as strong of a connection with it because
Ah.
Scott Pilgrim is like a little bit more like
It's certainly more my wheelhouse than Seconds. Second doesn't really have the. Scott Pilgrim is all about video games, and
it's not all
some
about
Yes.
video games.
It's pretty strong theme in it though.
Yeah, but like that's
and like
still
indie bands
window
and that kind of
dressing on
stuff
top of
too.
an actual emotional story and stuff too.
Sure, but it's a story about defeating 7 bosses to get to the final boss. Like it's
Yeah, and this
told
isn't
through.
that. I would agree.
Yeah, and this doesn't really have that.
It's much more straightforward and like it feels a lot tighter and a little less rambly, which like is good and bad because like I like the rambly bits of Scott Pilgrim and the weird like off kilter like a guy turned into coins bits here and there, but like this is not like this doesn't have that, but it is like a much tighter story as a result of being like one focused book all put together too.
Yeah, there's what 6, 7 books of Scott Pilgrim.
6, yeah.
6, we decided.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so Pat, what did you think of it overall? And then do we want to start talking about high points, like stuff we
Yeah,
liked?
absolutely. I enjoyed it. It's a fun story, and it really. I mean, you can obviously tell the guy who wrote Scott Pilgrim also wrote this one because it does have very similar feelings of growing up and making serious choices where maybe you're not prepared to make such serious choices. And yeah, I don't know. It's fun.
And you just make them anyways and watch what happens, and eventually you live in a world of skeletons.
Yeah, basically.
I was checking out your notes, Pat, and you
Mhm.
wrote that like the fact that it just suddenly becomes a world of skeletons was really jarring to you, and you wish there had been like more like explanation or lead up to it. And I think part of the point is that your decisions snowball and you don't even see it. So
I get that. Like
yeah,
it
okay.
goes crazy towards the end and gets faster and faster. Like she has no control over anything because she doesn't. But me being me, the fact that there's a world with like giant skeletons and like other skeletons that are just part of society, I want to know more about that. Like, I would like to know what that
You want
world
to
is
know more
about.
about Skeleton World?
It's like, what's going on there? Are they like dead people who've come back, or were they born skeletons? Are they just like immortal beings that just walk amongst the earth? I want to know.
Well, there were the skeletons working in the kitchen, and then there were the big skeletons that were
Yeah,
just
like,
trudging past the hillside.
are they related somehow? I want to know.
I did find myself wondering about mechanics a little bit here and there too. Like the one thing I was thinking about was the fact that the second house spirit was like constantly changing the world, but couldn't it just set things back to the point where she lived in the place she wanted to live?
The second house spirit?
Yeah, the one that came from Lucky's.
Well, I think you missed one of the recurring themes of the book, which is Liz's mushrooms.
Hit me with it, I guess, then. I'm not sure what you mean.
So you're saying the second house spirit was eating the mushrooms?
No, it wasn't her house and it wasn't her mushrooms. I don't know if she would have been able to do anything with the mushrooms.
I mean, she was doing stuff, because that's how we got into, like, Nightmare World at the end.
Well, yeah, but not enough to change things back to the way they were.
But there's my question, is why not? Like, if she can make all these different branches appear, is it just that she can only affect stuff going forward? Like, none of this really matters, but it's one of the things that I kind of thought
I
about.
mean, none of the stuff you're talking about really struck me as something that the second house spirit was doing. I thought that it was something that the tree of choices that Katie found herself in the midst of was just spitting out because the things that she wanted were so unlikely to happen in so many different universes that it had to really stretch to get there. And along the way, maybe there were some tears.
Oh, that's cool. That, like, in order to get this really, like, minuscule percent outcome, you have to go to a world where skeletons exist also.
Right, that's right.
That's kind of cool. I like that.
I like that. I didn't really notice, but when she dumped the dirt from the cauldron, is that when her choices started taking like dark turns?
I think
It's definitely
so.
when, like, the creepy scenes with the, like, the Lucknow house spirit, like, sort of seeping through the floorboards start happening.
Yeah, definitely. Like there's sludge coming up from the yeah.
Kat noticed, so I'll probably let her expand on it. Like, the pictures of the pheasant above Katie's bed throughout, like, all the alternate universes.
Yeah, so one of the things that's really great about this book, and one of the things that made me want to pick it actually, is that there are always so many interesting little background details. So, I mean, you just look at one of the wide shots of the restaurant, and really, it's a simple style of art, but no detail is spared. Like, there are vases on the mantelpiece, and every single person has a different hairstyle and a different outfit. And as you watch and things start getting more and more messed up in terms of the storyline, little details in her room start to change. So probably the most noticeable one is the picture of pheasants. So Katie has a picture of a pheasant on top of her bed in her room above the kitchen, well, above the restaurant. And as the story progresses, the what's happening to the pheasant in that picture keeps changing. Like when she's with Max, there are two pheasants, and when things are kind of messed up, there's a dog eating the pheasant, and
It gets
it's just
just, like,
something
worse
to
and worse,
look
right,
for.
until the end, basically.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
and the other pictures in the room change too, what they're showing. So
Well, I'm gonna have to reread it now because I did not notice.
It's pretty
yeah,
cool. I did
this
not
is one of
catch
those
it.
books where you reread it and you keep finding new things. Like I've never seen that apology for the bread joke before.
Yeah, I just found that one too. That's pretty great.
So, how do you guys go about making decisions in your day to day life?
Would you like to go first, Kat?
Yeah, I guess I just do a
Let me expound upon why I'm asking,
that
because
would be
the A,
good.
that'll give you time to think about your answer, and B, it'll kind of set up, like, what I'm going for. Like, it's basically a book about how different decisions lead to different outcomes, right? And, like, how even changing those decisions in ways that you think is benefiting you doesn't necessarily lead to better outcomes. So, like, I was thinking about it in terms of, I don't know. So one of the things, Kat, you and I have talked about this semi recently, is, like, for my work bio webpage, I had to put up a quote, and so I had to pick a quote for it.
Yeah, it was something for Power Rangers, right?
No, that was the GIF, which now
Oh.
we're gonna link to the GIF in the show notes, so that'll be fun. But the quote was a Denny Crane quote from Boston Legal, which was, "I don't live for tomorrow and never saw the fun in it." And you basically called me on my bullshit, and you were like, "That's not applicable to you."
That's not even close to your life philosophy.
No, I'm definitely more of, like, and this might be a gaming thing more than anything else, where I definitely, like, think more, like, I think long term, like, I play for the long game more than, like, short term decisions. And I think Katie's, like, sort of the exact opposite throughout this book. So that was interesting to me. And it kind of got me thinking about how I make my own decisions. And also, like, I don't know. The other thing it reminded me of was the quote from the bell jar, which is another thing I think.
You've never even read The Bell Jar.
Just I have, by the way. I read the whole thing.
Yeah, so after I finished the book, I said to Matt, this reminds me of The Bell Jar,
I don't know
in
if that's how it
which
happened, by the way.
Sylvia Plath describes the angst she feels about her life by likening it to standing under a tree, and it's a beautiful tree with all these different kinds of fruits, but she can only reach for one, and as she makes up her mind about which fruit she's going to reach for, more and more of them start to fall. And that's definitely how making important life decisions feels. With Sylvia Plath, she decided to marry a loser and have a bunch of kids that she didn't want. Matt, back to your question of how do you make decisions? I guess one of the things I liked about Katie is that I can kind of relate to her in this sort of this bubbling cauldron of impulsivity where one particular whim kind of comes to the surface and becomes stronger and stronger, almost like that house spirit growing in the basement. And eventually, you're like, okay, this is the whim I will follow. And sometimes, if that means uprooting your life and doing something completely different, that's what you end up doing. But sort of the unapologetic way that she goes about doing it, I thought was rather admirable, even if it was also not particularly smart.
I don't know. I mean, it ends up working out, which I think is part of the message of it is like, hey, do your best, make the decisions you make, and like learn to roll with it. Is I think sort of one of the messages of the story.
Yeah, that and maybe the fact that even if you feel like a failure, I mean, her life at the beginning of the book, she thinks is a mess, but it's actually kind of cool. Like she's the cook at the chef at the best restaurant in town. She
Right?
lives in a
She's
cool
getting ready to
city.
open her second restaurant, and she's like, "Oh, I'm not good enough."
Yeah, so I think that's pretty cool, but for yourself, it's just never quite good enough.
Yeah. And I mean, like, she wasn't the chef anymore. I think that's part of the problem, that she had already phased herself out of working at Seconds at that point. So she didn't really have a place to be because she wasn't a chef at Seconds and her new restaurant wasn't open yet. So she's just like in this weird middle
Like
space.
limbo, yeah.
Yeah, she had like no actual, I don't know, she couldn't really do anything. So she
Which
was
is
going
not a thing
crazy.
I like, having experienced it. Like I hate that, like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing next, sort of like limbo, or like the I know what I'm doing next, but there's 2 months till it happens, sort of limbo. Like, oh, it's unfun.
Oh, but that's freedom.
Sort of it's freedom, but sort of it's just like you're like trapped in a tunnel between the place you were and the place you're going, you know?
Yeah, definitely can see it both ways because it was going well for her. Like she's successful. She successfully started and like launched the most popular restaurant in town, and she's halfway through getting the new one ready to go. So
And she gets to hang out with house spirits.
that's right.
What do you think of Liz's wardrobe?
I was just going to mention the wardrobe. Reading through this again, I think that it must have been the first time I read it is when I decided that I needed to have a Nirvana shirt.
Is that why you wrote a Nirvana shirt?
I think so. It was just one of those, like I said, one of those things in the bubbling cauldron of whims that suddenly solidified and was like, I need to find myself a Nirvana shirt.
I like this concept of the bubbling cauldron of whims, by the way.
I
Just
think
see
it's
which
pretty
one comes
accurate.
to the surface next.
That's why we got eggicles, my
Oh
ill-fated
my god.
experiment of several years ago.
Possibly the worst food of all time.
Icicles.
Have I explained the exicle to you, Pat?
You have not.
Really?
I'm going to take a crack at it first. Kat, feel free to come in and defend it
All right.
afterwards. So, Kat decided that eggs are good,
Hmm.
popsicles are good.
Oh no.
Sometimes you just want eggs. Sometimes you just want eggs on a hot day, but you don't want hot eggs. So let's put basically an omelet into a popsicle and call it the egsicle.
No.
It was like one of the last things we got to use our popsicle maker for before it broke too. It
Cold
was
eggs
not
are
a good use
never
of our
good.
time. I think it might be my like least favorite food creation.
To be fair, I kind of liquefied them, and I think if I tried it again with more egg and less liquid, it maybe would turn out better.
You think chunks would improve the
I think
icicle?
it depends on the chunk. Yeah.
Okay.
If you say the sentence, it depends on the chunk, it's not going to work.
And I'm Cat. It depends on the chunk, Prince.
Okay, so here's the thing then. Like thinking about the fact that Katie is throughout this like pretty impulsive and that's a defining character trait. And we should also
Mhm.
circle back to the fact that like overall Brian Lee O'Malley protagonists are very flawed and I appreciate it.
Oh yeah, Katie is a hot mess.
Do you think that she like has learned to be less impulsive by the end, or she's more like learned to accept that that's who she is, and she's like willing to accept the outcomes.
Her and Max are together at the end, right? Like they patch
Okay.
up.
Do you guys usually give the spoilers at the end? I suppose may as well since we're delving into it.
Yeah, it's a podcast for people that have read the thing. Basically, is what
Oh,
we
okay,
like
good.
overall have decided. Like, if you haven't read Seconds yet, go read Seconds. And also, I'm not sure why you're listening to this.
But yeah, so she gets back together with Max right after explaining that she is willing to have a relationship with him, but she's not willing to like change herself for it.
Yeah, and she's also not apologizing for the choices she made because she would make them again.
Right. Which I don't feel is any different than the Katie in the beginning. Like, I felt like Katie in the beginning changed when she decided to like alter her reality for Max, literally. It felt weird to me.
Sometimes you just really want something to work, and it's very clear that it's not going to, but you want it to work so badly that you ignore it as long as you can.
Sure, I get
And in
that.
a relationship, that breeds resentment, which is why it never worked in any of those parallel worlds where she was not opening her own restaurant.
Well, it also speaks to her pride that she wasn't willing to share her new restaurant with Max.
Why should she? She's the genius. She said herself that Max can't cook.
I mean, like, if he's a part, so I have two thoughts about that actually. As I was reading through it, like, if he's a partner in it, they should share it. But also, she has not lived in a world where he's a partner in it, so like, it's very, I don't know. Like, I get why she has such trouble going with it because A, it was her baby, and B, like, she has not experienced the world where they were working on it together.
Her dream is not to co-own a restaurant. Her dream is to be in charge. If that guy is hanging around, guess who the contractor is going to go to first?
Oh yeah, I hated all that stuff where he was taking care of everything. Like, it should still be her restaurant. I don't really understand how. Like, there's the panel where she's talking about that Katie, and she's saying like, when did this Katie give up on life? And like, that's how much, like, that's how important the restaurant is to her. Is that basically this Katie having like taken a back seat to Max is basically the same as having given up on life.
It kind of makes the reader feel like they don't like Max anymore. So, I mean, can you
Max
imagine
is
the
kind of a
resentment
big
of their
nothing burger
relationship?
anyway.
I feel like I didn't
That's
like
not
Max
true.
all the way through. Yeah, like Max didn't really do
All right,
anything.
sell me on Max.
Other than the good looks, what has he got going on?
He's got that stubble.
Well, the thing that he's got going on is that Katie likes him and they get on very well together. And that's all that needs to matter in terms of the story. It doesn't matter if you like him. I mean, it's interesting that I felt like I liked him a lot less in the worlds where Katie had to sacrifice her dreams to be with him. But, I mean, yeah, he's fine.
Well, see, you've gone from likable to fine.
Yeah,
So
he's
you've already
likable.
downgraded. No,
It
likable
doesn't
and
matter
fine are
if
different.
you like him. It matters if Katie likes him and
Well, why do
she
you? I'm
likes
trying
him.
to get an answer for like why you like him, because you were like, okay, I like him, and then you're like, well, I mean, Katie likes him, so it's fine.
Well, how about this? What makes Max the better choice than Andrew?
Because Andrew's far too much like Katie. They're both hot-headed, and they're not going to share a kitchen. And
Yeah, they're both a mess. At least Max is like not entirely a mess.
He felt like a mess.
I don't know. He seems like pretty typical hot boy to me.
typical hot boy, huh?
Yeah, typical hot boy.
Okay, Matt has some opinions about the typical hot boy. What's
He's
that?
drawn with
He's
pouty
fine.
lips every
He's
single
just there to have the
scene.
low-cut shirts and be the eye candy.
Yes, yes. No, but like seriously, what about you leads to like, hey, I like Max? Because I like that's one of the in the section of our notes that is like, hey, what's your low point? I was like, oh, Max isn't really a character. He's there. He's like kind of a prop though.
You know, with the comics that I really like, I don't tend to like tearing apart the low points. I mean, for
Yeah, that's
me,
fair.
he meshed really well. He's a piece of the puzzle that is this story, and he fits really well. Katie likes him, and I mean, maybe she liked him initially because he was pretty and he was a good talker, more so than he was a good cook. But then towards the end, like they've developed a relationship over 4 years that you don't really get to see in this book. So to see only the really messed up parallel worlds Maxes that you end up with is not really a fair judgment of him or their relationship.
Sure, okay. I still don't like Max.
I just don't have strong feelings about Max.
And you're not Katie, so you don't need to.
I am happy that they get together at the end because I think that makes her happy. So like that I'm in for.
And the pheasant picture.
At the very end? What is it at the very end?
Two pheasants hanging out
Canoodling.
together, looking much less frantic than the other pheasant picture where they were
It's
together.
true. They're much happier looking than the other pheasant.
That's when they're in their new house / apartment?
No,
Yeah.
think they're
I think
still
it's
in
right
love
at the
now.
end.
Yeah, it's in the new apartment. I'm looking at it right now. Oh, they're cuddling. The two pheasants are cuddling each other. Well, you're the one that pointed it out, Kathryn.
Kat doesn't like words that have double consonants in them, so you got her with cuddling.
Yeah, well, I mean, to be fair, I'm not sure I like Katie all that much. So,
Oh, what don't you like about Katie?
she comes off as overly self-centered to me. Like, she's fixated on her goals, which is admirable, but to a point where she's not allowing the troubles and like problems of her close friends to even phase her. Her new business partner Patrick is at a funeral she's forgotten and calls him to complain about her issues. Like that scene where Patrick is standing in front of a grave and talking to Katie to calm her really bothered me.
So it's because you related to the other Patrick, the sort of Patrick
It is.
friendship.
It is. Yes.
I mean, it even comes back to the first note that she wrote to like rewrite reality. She's like, "I wish I hadn't messed up," not "I wish Hazel hadn't gotten burned."
Oh,
Like
the
that's
spelling.
yeah, the spelling is really bad. It's kind of triggering.
I thought it was kind of clever too, though.
Yeah, no, it's cool. Like I like that Katie is not
Wait a minute, her business
perfect.
partner's name is Arthur. Who's Patrick?
I'm sorry. Who's Patrick?
I guess Patrick's self-identified.
Wow. I
All
want to
these
delve
selfish
deeper
people
into
are
why
just
you.
asking me for things.
I swear
So
to God, I
Patrick, how
thought
do
there
you
was a
like this
Patrick.
Arthur character?
I like Arthur. I swear to God, there was a Patrick. I'm sorry.
I think Patrick might be Stephen Still's bitchy boyfriend from Scott
I
Pilgrim.
feel like that's not right, but let's do a quick Google.
Swear to God, there's a Patrick.
I just looked it up. And there is no Patrick in this comic, as far as
Well,
I
that's
know.
just awkward.
Wow.
Just awkward.
That's deep.
You have a really good connection with him, though, so that makes sense.
Well, he's one of the ones that she just blew past, and it bothered me.
I think you should write a new comic based on this one called Patrick and the Skeletons.
No, I'm sorry, Arthur. But still, like he's going through shit. She doesn't really care.
I mean,
Andrew,
that's entirely Katie's deal throughout most of the book, right? And like that's what makes the moment at the end where she takes the second house spirit back to Lucky's. Like,
I mean,
actually
also
legit
that's also
good.
a thing that she like had a suspicion would save her.
I don't think she did actually. Like, I was writing about that in my notes of like the fact that she doesn't actually think it's going to fix anything. She's just doing it because it's going to make the house spirit happy. Is like an integral part of the end to me. Because
Well, she's also the reason why any harm came to Liz. So it's sort of, I did this horrible thing that resulted in her potential like death. So I'm doing this thing because I feel obligated to do so.
I mean, sort of, yes, but she also doesn't think she's gonna like fix the world or do anything positive for herself in doing that, which I think is cool. Because I think if it was, oh, I have to take the house spirit back because that will fix everything magically, then you don't get the character growth that you get with Katie of like she's finally doing something that's not selfish. It's just because like maybe they're both stuck here in this world, but like at least the Lucknow house spirit can be a little bit happier.
Sure.
And they just happen to get out of it. I mean, she doesn't. I'm paging towards it right now. I'm pretty sure she says like, "Hey, yeah, like you aren't alone. I'm here now. I'm in this world with you. I know it isn't the greatest, but we can still at least try to make it a little better. Don't you want to try?" Like, it's not rewriting past decisions. It's like making like a non-shitty current decision, which I think is like the moment of the book where I could tell you like, "Hey, Katie's actually learned
a
something."
redeemable
Yeah.
character. Sure.
Wow, I don't know if I'd go so far as to say redeemable
She
because I don't
hasn't
think
done
she
anything
really
she needs to be redeemed
Yeah,
from.
that what
This
Kat
is
said.
simply her, you know? She shouldn't have to apologize for who she is. You can only grow so much. I mean, at the center of it, you are who you are.
I'm just saying redeemable because she's made a series of horrible mistakes that's led to this apocalypse.
Oh, so you don't like Katie because you think that she made too many mistakes.
No, I don't.
You can't handle the truth.
I think that the ending
right, Jerry.
is pretty bleak, and it's an ending that she made for herself.
Yeah, and I think it's cool that rather than like try. I mean, she can't at that point because she doesn't have any mushrooms left, right? But like, she doesn't even try to rewrite it. She's not like, this will magically rewrite it. It's like, okay, this is the best we've got, basically.
Sure. Yeah. I don't hate Katie. I just she's my favorite person. The only person I actually liked to this was probably Hazel, because
I was
Hazel's
gonna say,
you
who
like
is your
Patrick.
Patrick's pretty cool too.
Patrick doesn't exist.
Hazel's. You don't like Liz even?
I didn't really get Liz's deal.
Liz is also fine to me. Like, I have the same feelings about her as I have about Max.
I find
actually.
Liz to be quite charming.
Because
I mean,
Her wardrobe.
her wardrobe is
yeah,
really
her
good,
wardrobe.
actually.
The fact that
Does
she's
she
so
eat
strange.
her clothes and then like regurgitate them and wear
That's
them?
my
No, they
favorite
become her.
sequence, by the way.
Oh, they become
Like,
her. I like
My
that.
favorite sequence of the book is that night that Katie and Hazel are like waiting for Liz to appear, and Katie can see her, and Liz can't, and Hazel can't.
And she's explaining what's going on. And she
Yeah,
can't-
like it's got.
Does
the,
she
like,
not like the coat? She's eating the coat.
She's eating it, and Katie's just like trying so hard not to bust out laughing. That scene's really cool to me for a lot of reasons. But so, Kat, you liked Liz.
Yeah.
Pat, you liked Hazel.
Yeah.
All right.
Wait, are we picking favorites? I mean, I liked everybody.
Okay. Who would you say is your favorite?
I don't have a favorite. I mean, I guess maybe it's Liz. I liked Andrew. I liked the skeletons and how like the delivery skeleton just didn't really care, just like a normal skeleton with a body on it that would be a delivery man.
Skeletons were pretty good.
I like when Kid is like, is he smiling or is he just a skeleton? I don't know.
Yeah, I thought Andrew was fun.
I think Andrew's fine. I think he's cocky, but he's trying to prove himself
He's
against
cocky
Katie's
because
skill.
he's good.
Yeah, and he's also got Katie calling him crap like every day, which is great because they're
Your food is bad.
Sucky.
Sucky and bad.
and he's got mixed feelings because he actually has deeper feelings for Katie that isn't really reciprocated.
Not even close to reciprocated. Kat, you're laughing. Why are you laughing?
Oh, I was rereading the page where she was like, redoes the incident where she eats the bad burger and she tells Andrew, I want salad. Healthy salad. He's like, okay.
I really like that whole
Wait, there is a
montage.
Patrick. I'm sure there's a Patrick. The cook guy is a Patrick.
Yes, the assistant cook.
Yeah.
When it becomes the chef at the end, that's Patrick.
Yeah.
You know, Patrick is okay. He's not my favorite.
I like Patrick. I like him more than I like Andrew.
He's the one that ends up dating Hazel at the end, and she gives him, 3 weeks or whatever it is?
Yeah.
I like the interaction with the narrator too, how they like try to wrap everything up really nice at the end and it's like, no, actually that didn't really happen. This was like 1 minute.
Yeah, the scene where Hazel's like getting along, like, this happened for like 2 minutes.
We all have bangs. Wow.
Just trying to end on a positive note. Settle down.
Yeah, the interaction between Katie and the narrator is pretty fun.
Yeah.
Can I also say that another thing I like about this book is that Bryan Lee O'Malley has an incredible knack for designing costumes. Just the things that everybody wears. Like, they're unique to each personality, and they're just always really well done.
I really like all the like half or third page sort of like, it's not panels because there's no panel border there, but that Hazel gets in all of her outfits throughout the thing. Like,
Yeah, she's got
you
the
really
best
like drawing
outfits.
Hazel in a bunch of clothes, yeah, which is cool.
It's cool. Going back to that burger scene, I think it's got my favorite line in it. The eating it felt like eating an old friend. It's like, oh, it's perfect. Comfort food.
Gross though. So I have like semi-relatedly, I have like a Little Caesars budget where I let myself have like Little Caesars pizza like once a month. It's
How
close
do you get
to
it with
that.
mushrooms?
No, they don't have it with mushrooms. It's straight cheese or
Oh, one of
pepperoni.
those
That's what Little
$5
Caesars has.
footlong kind of pizzas.
Yeah, basically. When like sometimes I'll let myself have that for lunch. Basically, it's 2 meals usually. I'm not a monster. All right, back on track though. Hazel's good.
Hazel's great.
Hazel's my favorite character in the thing, probably.
Really?
Yeah, like I don't know. She's just like she's sweet. She's just trying to help Katie out. Like I really like the step by step like this is what I do for the house spirit montage, and like I like that throughout the different realities, the fact that Katie somehow manages to make a friend in Hazel is the one like sticking point. Like that's the thing that crosses no matter what has happened, even at the end.
Yeah, I thought about that because she does go back to Hazel to get answers. And it's like, are you still talking? Did you have the last conversation? And they had because they just picked it right back up.
It's my theory that the whole reason this book happens at all with the mushrooms is because of Hazel.
Oh, it
Because
definitely is.
Liz likes Hazel, so she knows that that's going to happen, and she wants Katie to help Hazel not get burns all over her arms.
Yeah, and then Katie abuses the privilege like the selfish dick that she is.
Oh,
Which is
yeah.
fine. Like, that's her character. But then, like, that's what incites the whole rest of the book. But yeah, it's definitely like the fact that Hazel is sweet is the inciting incident of the book.
No, the whole house spirit things remind me a lot of the Studio Ghibli kind of stuff, like Spirited Away.
There's a lot of that rooted in Japan with Shinto religion, where, I
Yeah,
mean, I guess it's kind of in human nature to just like give personality to
personification. Yeah,
something that isn't necessarily alive. Like how many people name their cars? I certainly have. Or, or like sometimes I'll pray to the gods of each intersection so that the stoplight will turn green and let me go.
I got to start doing that.
Well, I mean, do you ever give like an animate attribute to something that is not? Do you name your car?
I don't actually.
My dad taught me never to.
Don't grow
Well,
attached.
Actually, yeah.
that's not very fun.
I'm trying to think like what the thing that I actually have like I have named or have an attachment to is.
I don't really do it with inanimate objects. Like I love animals. Like my parents' dog is amazing, but I don't like cars or I don't know. I don't really do it.
I don't know if I name my cars, but I do like feel a spirit of friendship with them.
And there's something fun about doing something ritualistic to please something that may or may not exist. Like a lot of other cultures, at least in Asia, will continue to leave offerings out. I'm not sure what they're for, if they're for like dead relatives or spirits or what, but I don't know. If you go to Korea, you see like fruit lying around on monuments and such. It's just kind of nice.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know. I really like the montage of stuff where she's abusing the power of the mushrooms too, where she just like comes down and they like she like sort of has the drunky night, like the.
Which why revise that?
I don't know why she changed that either. Yeah, like it
bonding
seemed like
moment.
they had a really good time. I mean, I think it's literally just because she didn't want to wake up with a hangover.
No, that's what it was. Yeah, it does give me more of appreciation for like privately owned restaurants that I didn't really have before.
What do you mean?
Just like the work and the ambition behind it. Like it's obviously someone's dream of every like little restaurant.
Yeah, man.
If you're good, you can become a celebrity.
Oh, okay, Kat and I have different outlooks on it.
What do you mean? I'm just saying, in Madison, there's a few restaurants that have the chef that, like, he has a whole entourage when he goes to the farmer's market.
Oh, really?
See, whereas this tells you a lot about how we make different decisions. Like my first thought was like, yeah, like 80% of those fail.
Not when Katie's the chef.
Not when Katie's the chef. Katie's very damn good though. So
I really like that the whole book was in color, which is something that, at least for the first run of Scott Pilgrim, we didn't get. So it added a lot, especially with some of those scenes where he was doing the kind of like, and I suppose I think he might work with someone who does the backgrounds and he just does the foregrounds. I'm not sure. But anyway, there was a few scenes in there where it was just kind of like a blueprint style.
Yeah, like the cutout of the basement kitchen area.
Yeah, that was
fun.
probably my favorite page. That was really neat.
Get to see what everyone's doing.
It was kind of like The Sims.
Yeah.
So Nathan Fairbairn is the colorist on this, and he's done a bunch of good stuff. Basically, like he did the recolored Scott Pilgrim versions. So like there are recolored Scott Pilgrim versions now.
Yeah, I know.
Why would they need to be recolored?
Because they didn't have
It's
color.
a different kind of story.
Oh, they were black and white? See, this is
Yeah.
how long ago I
Except
read it.
one of them had like a small colored part right at the beginning.
Oh, okay.
But I remember in Scott Pilgrim, and I'm sorry I don't remember who, but there was someone who did the background. I guess no, for this one he had Jason Fisher as a drawing assistant.
Yeah, it might be the same person. I'm not sure.
Yeah, because there are some detailed backgrounds when they're driving through Toronto.
Yeah, Nathan Fairbairn's done a bunch of good stuff. A bunch of Batman comics actually that are really good.
Oh, nice.
Which might be surprising to know based on like the fact that this is very much not a Batman book.
Not a mainstream, yeah. But he does a great job.
You never know. Batman might have a cameo. Oh, and another cool thing is that like right when the skeletons start showing up the menu at the restaurant, did you guys notice that the food gets really creepy?
Yeah.
I didn't actually.
Oh
Well,
yeah,
I noticed
so
one of the creep, like the very obvious one, but not the
with the
more
bird.
subtle ones, probably.
So
Yeah.
everything on that menu is an extinct animal.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the Antillean cave rail is extinct. And the Gypceros, I'm not sure what that is, but I'm sure that's extinct too.
With a name like that.
I do appreciate the amount of like research that
Oh no,
goes
it's a
into all this
monster.
stuff.
It's a sci-fi thing.
Okay, I'm looking at it now. Oh, there's a Adomo Farms Bellsprout. Like, is that like a Bellsprout like the Pokemon?
Oh, okay, so they're eating Pokemon and extinct
Apparently, they're eating
animals.
Pokemon and extinct
And that
animals.
one person's eating an entire octopus. And of course, Scott Pilgrim's eating an avocado and two pieces of sushi.
Oh my god, that's where Scott
Yep.
Pilgrim is?
Yeah.
I think they might be on a double date with Knives and young Neil. Does she end up with young Neil? Because it looks like Knives' hair.
You think that's. Oh, that is Knives' hair. That might be Knives and Young Neil.
Oh my god, that is Scott and Ramona. What the what?
So I feel like this wasn't as defining a book to me when I read it in 2014, which was what, like 5 years ago. So I would have been 24, as it honestly kind of felt like now. Like having had the chance to have made more decisions and like think about the different variables involved in all of them, like
Sure.
this feels like it's a lot, like there's a lot more there to me. I don't know. I was kind of wondering, like, A, if you agree, Kat, and B, Pat, this is the first time you've read it. So, like, I know you kind of caught Scott Pilgrim late. So I was wondering if this one, like, I think you've kind of talked about Scott Pilgrim as more of a, like, your type of book than this was, but I was wondering
It
if it
gelled
kind of,
more
because
with
you're
me.
also coming up on that 30-year-old mark in a couple months, I believe.
I am. This is true.
So that part of it didn't ring true for you, Pat, where it's like, wow, yeah, I'm 29. Maybe I should get my act together.
No, that's bullshit. It definitely rang true for him because I texted him and I was like, "Hey, did this like? How did you feel about it being a 29-year-old?" And you're like, "Yeah, I'm not even on my first restaurant yet." So if he says no, it's bullshit.
That is true. That is true. Like, I have a bad habit of comparing myself to others and saying, wow, they've done a whole lot and I've done what I've done. And it doesn't feel to be the same level. But turning 30, I mean, it's just happenstance. I think I just do this regardless of how old I am. So I don't know. Like, I obviously feel for Katie and the fact that she wants to do more, but she's done so much at the beginning. It's crazy.
Right?
It's like you're a super talented chef that everyone adores. You have a super successful restaurant. I'm sorry your second restaurant isn't going as smoothly.
Seconds.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about that.
There are a lot of layers to that title, actually.
Yes.
Like an onion.
I mean, I think we all kind of do it, right? Especially like I know the three of us do it. I think everyone does it though,
Except for those super successful bastards.
or people that just don't care. Like they're just happy with the thing they're doing, which teach me how.
Yeah, right?
Teach me how. But yeah, so Kat, do you think that this reread was like more impactful to you being closer in time to the characters in the story?
Yeah, I guess. I don't remember. Was the last time I read it also in 2014?
You've said you read it since then.
Maybe. Yeah, I remember the last time I read it, I was younger than them, and now I'm older. Yeah, I guess the first time I was kind of just reading with trepidation about, oh my God, that's going to be me soon. And now I'm like, oh yeah, that wasn't so bad. Maybe I'm getting everything together. It's kind of it's reassuring that other people are at this point and don't really know what's going on, and
And
they're
freaking
having,
out about it.
or they
Yeah.
have something that they really want, and it's fraught with problems. So it's kind of nice, especially just because it sort of feels like, even though these are new characters, it's the same sort of universe that has been around since, like, gosh, for the last decade of my life. So I'm hoping that maybe in another 5 or 10 years there'll be another chapter that I can read and feel better about myself.
Yeah, I also like wrote in the, because one of the questions in our notes is like, hey, would you read the next volume of this story? And I was like, would I read like a story that takes place 5 or 10 years in the future? Yeah, but I might wait on it until I have aged up to it. I don't know.
Nope,
It's
nope. I'm gonna
interesting.
read it as soon as it comes out.
You'd read it as soon as it comes out.
Like I said, I don't really have anything that I had a problem with this story. So
Yeah, that's fair. The other thing I was thinking about, and I actually had a tough time thinking of good recommendations, is if someone read this book and they wanted to read or watch or listen to something else, like if they liked this, what else would they like? I actually had a tough time coming up with stuff. I was wondering if you guys had any thoughts.
well, so one of the things that I don't like about mainstream sorts of comics, and I do like about these sorts of comics, is that they're contained. You know, a self-contained story or one that just has a couple small parts is really nice. So people who are looking for something like that would be attracted to this. So they'd probably also be attracted to other sort of self-contained stories that are upbeat. Like, you would probably also like Nothing Can Possibly Go Wrong by Prudence Shen and Faith Erin Hicks. This one's about high school kids, and it's not in color, but I think it might be the same publisher. No, it's not Oni. It's First
I think
Second,
that
which
one's
is one
first
I haven't
second.
heard of. Yeah. But yeah, that one was cute. Again, self-contained, similar artistic style where it's simple and very emotive.
Pat, you got a recommendation?
I don't know what it says about me, but I don't like most of my stuff. Probably isn't uplifting. Like All Star Superman is probably the most uplifting I have.
I really like that this
Oh my
story ends with
God,
like,
doesn't
"Hey,
he
I've gotten
die
it
at the
together."
end?
He, no, not
Quote
really.
unquote dies, yeah.
Oh, nobody dies in comics. That's right.
It's true, especially not Superman. Come on. But yeah, comics wise, obviously Scott Pilgrim. If you liked this, you'll
Yep.
probably like Scott Pilgrim.
See, I was wondering if you've like maybe the moment has passed at this point. I don't know. It depends who you are, maybe.
I think if you're a gamer or have any interest in video games, you'll appreciate the references enough to like. They might seem dated now. I don't know. I haven't read it recently, but I mean the
Yeah.
tropes are still true. Like
Yeah.
enemies bursting into coins is still. It's like it's an evergreen kind of thing. But like outside of comics, I think the closest I can come to is Steven Universe. Has a very similar feel and tone to this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good rec.
It looks like a normal kids cartoon, but then it hits you with the feels when you're not
Yeah.
ready for it.
That's like a similar style and also similar heart to it, I think. So I think that's a good recommendation.
Absolutely. What about you, Matt? What would you say?
I mean, if you didn't mention it, I was going to steal your Steven Universe one because I saw it in your notes and I was like,
There
that's
you go.
correct. So I was just waiting to pounce, but you got me. The one I had was The Sculptor, which is like of a similar construction. Like there are lots of bits in this where you can see like the very square borders and your eye being drawn from panel to panel based on the lines and stuff. And like The Sculptor is sort of built on that, and it kind of plays in the same space about like making decisions and like optimizing for like life short term or long term. So that would probably be my rec. Is if you like this, you will most likely like The Sculptor.
Sure.
So yeah. Unless you guys have anything else, I think that wraps up our discussion on seconds. Any last bits?
Leftovers.
Any leftovers?
I feel like there's a pun that could be there besides last
no,
bits.
I thought there was two, but then I decided to not go for it.
Oh,
What?
okay.
Who are you?
That's fine, I guess.
I would recommend this. I did enjoy this, and I would say people should read it. So, Kat, I'm sorry if I came off too negative. I did enjoy this comic, and thank you.
You liked it in spite of hating the main character.
I don't hate Katie.
As always, if you want to get in touch with Pat or me, you can find us on Twitter as @thehypnotoad, which is spelled in the most confusing way possible, and
It's fine.
@MattLedge, respectively. You can also email us at waitingonthetrade@gmail.com and read more comics-related goodness at mattreadscomics.com. Kat, where can people find you online, assuming that you want to be found?
You can find me on Tumblr and other such artsy websites with the name Red Facilia.
Thanks again to Kat for coming on to talk about seconds with us.
Thanks, Kat.
Woo!
Thanks, Kat.
Thank you.
Join us next month when we'll be talking about Hawkeye Little Hits with guest host Tyler Marifke.